Welcome everyone to this session. We will be covering the onboarding process for most of these international investment banks. The most of they pick the cream of the crop, so it really helps for you to know what the onboarding process entails, so that you can prepare adequately. You don't meet any challenges or um, any situations that you've never encountered before and you become flustered. So Trevor and I will be taking you through this session. I'll hand over to Trevor.
Right. Thank you, Tony. So what we're going to cover today, I hope you can all see my screen, is first we'll have an intro to investment banks, then look at the beginning of the stage, so application, then look at how you should structure your CV or resume, then your cover letter. Then Tony will take us through the psychometric tests. Then we'll also go through the higher view video interviews. Then the final stage, which is usually the assessment center. And lastly, we'll go through a few examples of interview questions. So to begin, investment banks, as we're all quite familiar with the top dogs in the financial services industry. And of course, we all want to work for them. We can do so. Remember, the point of the club is to increase our financial literacy to help us to become better investors, better traders. And so if you get to work for one of these top dogs in the global financial industry, you'll be able to have a very in-depth and very insightful hands-on experience as to how to trade, not just local markets, but the entire global markets as well, be it NASDAQ or Dow Jones or whatever. So going into these companies will be incredibly beneficial for you as well. Regarding the pay as well, you'll be able to use the pay that they get you as sort of your capital. So you can work there a few years and not just get stuck in the rat race, but work there a few years, get enough capital to then invest and branch out on your own. So I've highlighted a few that are quite common. Of course, the best investment bank is Goldman Sachs, but we do also have quite large global financial institutions like Bank of America, CITI, JP Morgan. So what we do and what we're doing here is first we have to understand when do they open their applications? And that's usually in September. So around this month, they all open their applications for their summer internships. And these are important because summer internships are the main pipeline to full-time positions. Like you don't have to go through the application process again, go through the interviews again to get the full-time graduate offer. But if you do wish to, you can skip the summer internship and go straight to applying for a graduate position, though it will undoubtedly be much harder because you will be up against Ivy League students. And lastly, we have apprenticeships, which they're not very applicable for us in Africa, but they do work in the UK, for example, where we have systems for apprenticeships as well. But for us, we will be focusing on summer internships and graduate positions. So how to be able to access them? So you first, of course, search the company's name. So for example, you can say Goldman Sachs, then careers, and the Google will just load up the page. So you can go to the website. They have a specific dedicated website for careers, and you can be able to look at the available roles which fit or interest your interests or your passions or your skills. So that can be investment banking, which is the most competitive, corporate banking, credit, wholesale credit, whichever one that fits your fancy, even HR, audit. And so when you apply, you'll create an account. It'll just direct you to create an account, which you'll use for the duration of the hiring process or the application process. And so with application, the first step, you will, of course, apply, create an account, and then you'll be required to provide your personal details. So, of course, your name, where you live, your address, and then you'll write 2 short essays. Then you'll attach your CV, and depending on the bank that you've applied to, the cover letter as well. Because with Bank of America, it didn't require a cover letter, but JP Morgan did. So it does vary from bank to bank, but majorly they are similar in many, many ways. So the first things first, of course, as you're applying, use a professional email address. We don't want to say bujubani@gmail.com or something. Remember, this global corporates, so professional image is key. And so we have to portray yourself in the best image possible. The other key thing is you have to research the position and organization quite thoroughly, as this will help with the essays. And I do have a friend who's already applied, and he's already told me for Bank of America, the essay questions. So you can take note if you're going to be applying to Bank of America. The two essay questions are: one, in your own words, please describe the function of the division you have selected and why you have applied to Bank of America Merrill Lynch. And the second essay question is: how do you think you will utilize your academic skills and experience to add value to the division you are applying to? So incidentally, these are the same questions as the ones I got when I applied last year. So it appears that these are common questions. These two essay questions are quite common throughout the years. So it's good to have them down, and so you can prepare for it and be able to answer quite well. And so this definitely requires you to do extensive research. So you do appear as quite informed when you're answering the questions. The other thing is, when you're applying, definitely be honest. You do not want to lie at any point throughout the application. Pay attention to detail, proofread several times. Remember, you are up against thousands of other applicants, and so you want to make sure you put your best foot forward. And lastly, take your time with the application. Don't rush anything so that you don't make any silly mistakes along the way. Now, with regards to the CV or the resume, now this is very important. I know in Kenya it's quite a different culture, but with global corporates, especially in the financial services industry, they only consider one-page CVs. So you have to make sure it sticks to just one page. Also, make sure the content is relevant. Don't give us experience of how you did teaching, you taught kids at a certain kindergarten somewhere. That is absolutely irrelevant. So just make sure you put experience and content that is tied to the role you're applying for. And that also includes the courses that you have done. Highlight your achievements in a tangible and concrete manner. Don't just say, I'm very hardworking, I was able to bring about change, but actually provide figures. So you can say, for example, I helped so-and-so when I volunteered at so-and-so nursing home, I was able to help them achieve a certain percentage of growth or savings in costs over this period of time. So give figures and numbers, concrete numbers. The next thing is you have to make sure your CV is quite pleasing and professional. The other key thing is you do not attach your photograph anywhere on a financial services CV. That is absolutely not professional. All you need is just your name, your email address, and your telephone number, as you'll see in the following slide where we have a sample of that. Like I mentioned, you have to be honest because background checks will be carried out. So if they find that you lied about anything on your application, you will be disqualified. And just like that, you'll have lost your chance to have a seat at the table of one of the big boys. The other key thing is that your high school and primary school performance is not relevant at all. No one cares. And so that will just waste valuable space on this one-page CV where you have to bring out your best. Lastly, you do not need any references with investment banks because, as I mentioned with background checks, they cover everything. And so you do not need to include any references. So I have a sample CV that I got from, there's an organization called SEO Africa that works with African students on how to build up good CVs and how to prepare for these applications. So what will happen is, and it will most likely happen to you, is once you proceed to the final stage where you get the offer, then SEO Africa comes in. So they work hand in hand with these banks, Goldman, BOA, CITI. And so they help you to sort of train you so that you don't get to this higher level and get flustered. And so they provided a sample CV, and this is what I used for my own, as my own framework as well. So you have your name, your address, your phone number, your email, then you go straight to your education. You notice, like I mentioned, no primary, no secondary. So just the university, what you were doing, your academic standing, when you're expected to graduate is on the side. For your Beng, it's May 2014, and the relevant courses. Remember, we mentioned only relevant content. So depending on what you apply to, if you're applying for a role in HR, of course, the courses will be quite different from if you're applying for corporate banking. So of course, then work experience, you have to make sure you put in work that's in line with what the role that you're applying for. Then if you had any campus leadership or volunteer experience, and lastly, the skills. And also, just as a side note, we will be sharing this to the group. So just in case you want to like counter check and check the format or anything, we'll be sharing this deck to the group, so you don't have to worry about that at all. Now, the last thing I'll cover is the cover letter, where you have to address the cover letter to the hiring manager of the company that you are applying to. So you can easily get the physical address so that you can include in the letter, because remember, this is a formal letter. A cover letter is quite a formal letter. Though the caveat is, I do have to mention, some banks do require a cover letter and some don't. So like Bank of America don't require you to attach a cover letter, but JP Morgan, for example, does. So that's something to keep in mind. So how you'll structure it is your first paragraph, you introduce yourself and your interest in the position. The second is now you explain it in detail, why you're interested in the role and why you're interested in the particular company. The third paragraph, you will explain why you are suitable for the role. So here is where you're sort of selling yourself. What will you bring to the table? Well, how will you add value if they do recruit you, or if they do hire you? Then the last paragraph, you will thank them for the opportunity and you will sign off. This is quite straightforward, but in case anyone needs a sample of cover letter, we'll also send that to the group as well, but it's quite direct and straightforward. So I'm going to hand it over to Tony, who's going to take us through the psychometric tests.
Thank you, Trevor. So when I was talking to Trevor when we were preparing for this session, we realized that we were sharing our different experiences. Since he applied for BOA, I applied for CITI, and we realized that by and large, generally speaking, the onboarding process is somewhat similar, because for both of us, we found that once you've already gone through the application process, which Trevor has just taken you through, the next stage is usually the psychometric tests. And the psychometric test may vary from one organization to the next, or even from one recruitment to the next. Maybe this year you might find one thing, and then the next year you find it's completely different. But by and large, the main tenets when it comes to psychometric tests that you need to have an understanding of going into your application and everything. So psychometric tests, for those who don't know, there are these tests that are set in place so that they can identify your skills, knowledge, and personality. Basically, they're getting, apart from the application you've done, your CV, your cover letter, and the applications and the essays that you filled in. Psychometric tests now bring in the technical aspect of the onboarding process, because they get to know what you're really about. Because it's easy to write and talk a big deal about yourself, but when it comes to situations or scenarios that are actually challenging those skills that you proclaim to have, you might end up having challenges. So there are two kinds of these psychometric tests. First of all, the first one is the personality test. This one is, there's no wrong or right answer, but what I'll tell you is there are certain personality traits that maybe they've seen in their most successful consultants or employees that they have been onboarded in the past, and they tend to put a level of preference towards those ones. But as far as the personality test is concerned, there's no right or wrong answer. So when you're going into this, maybe you're given a situation and you're told, one I did was it's lunchtime, and maybe there's a table full of people and there's another table that is vacant. Where will you go sit? Will you rather go sit with those with a group of other employees, or go sit alone? Such things, just to see what kind of person you are and how sociable you are as a person. So most of the personality tests, you don't want to overthink it. You just want to look at the situation the way it is and answer it ask yourself, what is that one trait that would be preferable in an employee? So when you're answering them, I don't want to say you be disingenuous, but when you're answering them, don't just be blind. Understand the scenario and try to see what exactly it requires of you, and how to put yourself in the best possible position to be selected to move on to the next level. So the personality test is not as challenging, but now the aptitude test, this one I'll tell you, it's they're not necessarily a walk in the park, and they test aptitude tests test your reasoning and cognitive ability, basically how you think as a person. Um, and there are different kinds of aptitude tests. Trevor, you can move on to the next slide. So I'll take you through the different kinds. Abstract reasoning. Abstract reasoning is they test basically your ability to learn things quickly. They might give you picture patterns, like they give you 4 patterns and then they ask you to pick the next one, and they give you multiple choices, maybe A, B, C, and D, and you have to pick the next pattern. So basically they're testing your ability to first of all recognize what is the pattern and how is it changing, and you predict the next one. Basically they're testing your logic as a human being or as a person. Error checking tests, they might give you maybe numbers that are in ascending order, and then one of them is in descending order, and then they ask you to identify which one is the odd one out or where the error is. Numerical reasoning, here they test your ability to interpret things such as charts, graphs, data, statistics. They might give you a situation, and data has been input into a table, and then they ask you, maybe you identify the trend in maybe number of women, maybe the statistics of for a census, and they ask you to determine how the different metrics in that data set are changing, or they might give you ratios and see how you can be able to interpret them, or percentages, or you can have one of those questions you used to have in high school where they can be like, a child is this age, their parent is this age, how much older will the parent be in maybe 20 years, and such things. So numerical reasoning might not necessarily be require you to input formulas that you got in school or anything of that sort, but it's first of all your understanding and computation, and also speed at which you come up with the right solution. Because one thing you realize about this aptitude test is it's not about just about your ability to do it. You can find that every test that came, you could do it, but they're mostly timed, and they're timed on a question by question basis. So you may be given 2 minutes for a question, you're in the process of solving it, but you know you could solve it, but the time runs out and you moved on to the next question. So you ensure you're very nimble in your solution of the questions. When immediately you open it, you start doing it. Don't waste time trying to consult, or trying to, what most people do is you open another tab and then you try to Google it and try to find it online. Believe me, by the time you get your result and you interpret it in that context, time will already have run out for you. So you really have to be on your toes as far as the numerical reasoning is concerned. And then you have situational reasoning. Situational is more similar to what you got in the personality test, where they'll give you different scenarios, and they ask you how you'll handle it, or how best can it be handled. Most of them are not open-ended, so they'll give you they can give you multiple choices, and you pick the best course of action based on your view of this, your understanding of the situation, and who you are as a person. Because you might, two of us, me and Trevor, might be encountered by the same situation, but we'll handle it completely different. So that's mainly about the situational reasoning. And then the verbal reasoning is your understanding of written communication, and how you evaluate arguments. They can give you a statement, and then they ask you which statement in among the ones given below, maybe multiple choices, which statement best portrays that information. They can give you 2 separate sentences, and then you're told which one sentence best conveys the information that the person who gave out the information was willing to wanted to give out. So as far as aptitude tests are concerned, I always advise that you look them up online. There are many samples. They're literally uncountable. You can Google, you can go on YouTube and just practice as many as possible, because they're not structured in a way that your typical questions are structured, maybe in class or in school, or what you learned in school. So you need to learn to operate from that point of view, or from that mindset of familiarity. And also, by the way, before you do any of these tests, you're usually told the requirements that you need to have going into the test. So if it's numerical, you might be told to have a pen, piece of paper. You can be told to have a calculator with you. So I always ensure you read the instructions before you start the test, whatever, even if it's a personality test, always read the instructions, because if you do not, you might end up starting the test and realize there are requirements that you didn't have in place, or maybe you didn't even have a calculator, or you had to write things down, and you start scampering all over the place. And remember, all these questions are timed. Like the time is running out. So by the time you get to a calculator and sit down, you already move on to the next question. And once you've already gotten in that rush, you end up messing up even the other questions because you are not prepared. So always ensure you read the instructions beforehand, and you prepare adequately. Ensure you have everything in place going into the test. One of the most common types of psychometric tests is the Pymetrics test. Pymetrics is a company that basically offers these services to corporates who are looking to onboard new talent, and they test your different abilities. Basically, they gamify the whole process, because anyone who's ever done a Pymetric test could be surprised, is this even for hiring position? Because there are some about just popping bubbles, or bubbles are moving and the different colors, and you're told to maybe pop up a specific color, or basically Pymetric tests are usually gamified. They're made, the aptitude tests, yes, but they are structured in such a way that it's almost like a game. And basically they test aspects such as maybe your cognitive flexibility, how quickly you can be able to identify things, your attention control, your risk tolerance as a person, your fairness, and your emotional intelligence, and all that. So when you encounter any of these tests, as I've said, the first thing, always ensure you read instructions, have an understanding of what is required going into the test. So piece of paper or pen, calculator, whatever it is that has been stated in the instructions, ensure you have all of them at hand before you start. Secondly, ensure you have a stable internet connection, because you might find that on your end, maybe the questions are timed, you're doing numerical reasoning, the questions are timed, and you find that your computer starts buffering. By the time it starts, it loads, or by the time everything gets back in order, you find that you've already been moved to the next question. So ensure you have a stable internet connection, you're in a very calm environment where you can be able to adequately cover all this. Secondly, always be aware of the timing. The timing in the questions is essential. These questions are timed. So if you're just concentrating on doing the question, you might end up never answering any of the questions, because you're just starting and then you move on to the next one. You're just starting and move on to the next one. So concentrate as much as you want to do the accurate thing. Always ensure you keep up with the time, so that your efforts can be rewarded. You can be the smartest person on earth, but end up not getting any of the questions right, because you didn't do it within the time limits that are given to you. That's it on the psychometric tests. I'll hand it back to Trevor to cover the higher view interview.
Thank you, Tony. That was very clear and insightful. So what is HireView? HireView is a company that corporates use as video interviews. With Corona, of course, we couldn't be meeting in person. And so corporates, of course, had to adapt, because recruitment couldn't stop just because of COVID. And so they started using this company. So what HireView does is, or the process with which you use HireView, is you're given 30 seconds where they show you the question. And then once that 30 seconds is over, you're now given 2 to 3 minutes. It depends on the company or the firm that you've applied for to answer the question, and it's being recorded. So 30 seconds, you're shown the question. Immediately the 30 seconds ends, the 2 or 3 minutes starts and the recording starts. And so you have to answer that question within that time frame. Once that passes, then you are locked out. Though, as I mentioned, depending on which firm you apply for or you apply to, with BOA, it was just once, and also CITI as well. But with JP Morgan, you had 2 tries. So you could record the first time, then you feel like you haven't done it well, then you have an option to delete that one and go again. So it varies from company to company. With Goldman, might be different. With Credit Suisse, it might be different. So it just depends on which company it is. But just to be on the safe side, aim to ace the first try, so that you don't sort of go into it depending on you having an option, or I can just take it on the second go. So just try to ace it on the first go. So how are you able to ace it? Be enthusiastic and smile. Be relaxed. Try to stay positive and take deep breaths before you answer so that you settle your nerves. Psychologically, when you see you have a timer running, of course, that just immediately gives you pressure, and that's natural, but just try to stay calm, take a deep breath, and just be enthusiastic and smile. Like I mentioned, you see with the video, it's quite harder for you to communicate your excitement and your energy. And so you have to sort of go over the top a bit. So be a little bit extra, so that it communicates to the interviewer that you are enthusiastic, you're energetic, and you're quite motivated and passionate about the position of the role that you're applying to. And so this definitely does include the use of gestures. So if you're not very expressive, I'd have to recommend you work on that. You can practice just in front of your computer, use gestures, use facial expressions, be fully expressive. And that really communicates to the interviewer. Because you have to remember, there are thousands of you applying. And so what makes you stand out? There definitely, when you have that energy, when you have that confidence, when you have that smile, you'll definitely stand out. The other key thing is look at the webcam of your computer and not at the screen. And why is this important? When you're looking at the screen, the person on the other end, you feel like you're looking at the person's face, but you're really not. What you're looking at is you're looking down on them. So try to look at the webcam. That way, then it looks as if you're looking straight into the interviewer's eyes. So when the HR person comes to review the video later, they feel as if they're looking right at you, and that builds that human connection. And what can help, in addition, is placing the laptop a little bit higher than you normally would, so that you don't seem like you're looking down on them. So you can place a few books. If you have like a Bible or something, you can just place it under the laptop. So the laptop is just a little bit higher than your eye level. And so psychologically, it doesn't impose on the interviewer that this person is looking down on me. This intern or this graduate is looking down on me as they're answering the question. So that's just a tip with Higher View. So ask Tony to take us through the next one, which is Assessment Center.
Thank you, Trevor. For the Assessment Center, as with the Higher View interview, everything that Trevor stated, you have to carry them on to the actual interview, which is the Assessment Center, because as much as it is recorded, it's almost the person who's viewing it on the end, they are interacting with you on a one-on-one basis. So whatever has been stated for the Higher View interview, you carry it on to the Assessment Center. And the Assessment Center is now, instead of you recording videos and sending them on their end and then they get to watch them later, the Assessment Center now it's live. You get to sit across, it's almost as if you're sitting across the desk. As Trevor said, with COVID and everything, and also just the distance between maybe most of the team who's onboarding you might not be in the same country as you. So this is the modern equivalent of you going for an actual interview and sitting across the table from your potential employer, whoever is onboarding you. So The assessment center is usually a combination of, as Trevor has clearly stated, a combination of tasks and activities. So in this case, you have to interact with actual executives who are holding different positions within the industry, within the company, and don't let their seniority or their positions make you conduct yourself in a particular way or shut yourself down or downplay who you are as a person. Because more often than not, once you get the role, you'll be interacting with, you'll be reporting to someone, and they'll probably have a senior role, or at least they'll be more senior than you. And basically, your ability to carry yourself as yourself around them during the assessment will determine how you'll be interacting with them when you actually start the role. So think of them as any other person and bring your full self. Don't downplay yourself. And I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I told him the way our education system, the way we're meant to treat our teachers and our lecturers, there's almost a sense of reverence to someone who you consider to be of high rank. So you end up, keeping your head down and just trying to keep yourself make yourself as small as possible to I don't know why, but discard all that. So if that's your mindset when it comes to being around someone who's higher ranking, discard all that. Bring your full self, be very comfortable, interact with them as you would your coworker or a friend. Not necessarily a friend, but you get the idea. Be free and don't limit yourself or any aspect of your personality. So depending on the firm you get, the process might vary a bit, but by and large, there's the interview process. First of all, where they get to find out who you are as now on a one-on-one basis, and be candid as possible. So immediately from the onset of the assessment, ensure you're very, very candid. You don't try to rationalize an answer that person will expect from you and say it out loud, because these people can sense when you're taking them for a ride. So don't try to impress them. Be free, speak your truth, and they can always tell. No one expects you to be perfect. You're applying, in this case, you're applying for an entry-level position. No one expects you to be perfect or to know everything. So even when it comes to a situation where whatever has been brought up or has been asked of you, you don't understand it or you can't articulate it properly, say it. Tell it to them. Don't hold back or try to piece together an answer based on however you think things work in that company, because people really appreciate honesty from the get-go, because it's that same honesty you portray during this stage that you'll portray when you have a task and you can't handle it, and instead of fumbling around doing some half-baked work, you'll reach out and actually ask. So as much as this assessment is to onboard you, they're also testing on how you'll carry yourself out once you're in the position. Be confident, relax yourself as with the higher view interview, and let the conversation flow. Don't think in a structured way, and also don't try to anticipate the answers. I think that's one mistake that most of my buddies who applied for these jobs, that's one mistake that most people do. You try to anticipate whatever, or you try to impress them by thinking of what exactly they require from you, and you say it out loud to them. More likely than not, you'll end up landing straight on your backside if you go with that kind of mindset. And also, as it comes to the conclusion, it's usually a two-way interaction. So as much as this is an quote-unquote interview, you are also given a chance to ask the executives any questions that you have on your own. So, and this borrows back to the idea of doing your research for the role you're applying for, because the kind of question you ask says to them or tells them how your level of understanding of what the company does, first of all, and what will be required of you. So ensure you do your research and you don't ask some maybe a question that is rather too general. Ensure that your question is nuanced. You can even prepare in your mind or even before in advance a set of questions that you think are nuanced enough to communicate to them that I actually know of what the company is all about, and I have a rough idea of what will be required of me. So ensure whatever you when you're given a chance now to ask them questions, you pick questions that communicate your understanding of the company and what everything is about. Trevor, I don't know if you have any further input on this.
No, I think you covered it quite well. That's precisely what I would have mentioned. And even looking at my own experience, you have to remember, by the time you're getting to the final stage, you're all your CVs are good. You're all very smart and brilliant people. So how do you stand out? How do you leave a lasting impression on them, on these executives? Of course, by being relaxed, by being conversational. Like I mentioned, don't try to impress them and sort of show off. Just be human. Because on the other side, yes, they have an incredible title, but they're human. They still like football, or they still they still like soda or something. Like, don't get intimidated by the title. Just try to build rapport with the individual. Right? So try to build some chemistry, get the conversations flowing. As Tony mentioned, don't try to anticipate what they'll say. Sort of go with the flow of the conversation. And you'll find that not only do you enjoy that as well, but they also enjoy it. And it sticks in their mind like, oh, I remember Tony. I had a great conversation with Tony when they're coming to review at the final stage. So that was quite well covered. And so now we'll go to a few of the examples of interview questions that you may receive. So, of course, most likely than not, they will ask you, tell me about yourself. So you just give a brief snapshot of your school and your work history, like which university you go to, the field of study that you're in, the length of time that you've spent. Then if it's work that you've done, the name of the company, your title, the time in the role, and your major responsibilities. So give mini stories and make them achievement oriented. Remember, as we were talking about the CV, well, you don't want to just give vague, random accomplishments. You have give concrete examples, right? So you can describe a major accomplishment that you received, that you're able to achieve, or results, or what you were able to do while you were in the role. And when you give them this concrete example, then they know that you can actually, you walk the talk, like you can back up your skills. You have experience with what you're talking about, right? Then tell the employer or tell the interviewer when you're asked what you know about the role, right? So you can acknowledge to them that you understand, for example, if it's audit, you understand that for this position of audit analyst, you're looking for someone with strong communication skills, able to work as a team, right? So it depends. You have to, as Tony mentioned earlier, when you research the position and the organization, you truly understand what it is that you're applying for. And so you're able to comment on the requirements. You understand what is required of you if you're going to be onboarded and hired, right? Then lastly, you just round it off by telling them why you're the right fit, right? So yes, you understand that this role requires this particular skills. Well, due to my particular background in whatever, for example, let's say you are a student head of department, you have actual operational experience working at so-and-so company, and you have problem-solving skills. So now you can give an example of how your position, be it in school or at work, is able to help you to solve a problem. And so you can conclude by, I am confident I'll be able to succeed in the role that you're hiring. So you can just provide a concise summary of all the points that we've covered and just make it brief and clear, and it will communicate well. So I think, Tony, you can take the next one.
Oh yes, and as Trevor said, preparation is very, very, very important, because when it comes to all these questions, it is best that you do your research as an individual, so that you can find out, first of all, the kind of questions that are asked for all these roles. Because even if I just open my my Google search and I search CT interview questions, you'll find a couple of websites that publish the kind of questions that are asked. And by and large, the main questions, like the ones we're highlighting right now, they're asked year after year. So it's best that you familiarize yourself beforehand, so that you can ensure that when you encounter the questions, you're not thinking from scratch. People have a tendency to forget things that they have done, the achievements and all that. So if you've not prepared, you've not thought of situations in the past that put you make you the most appropriate person for this position. So ensure you always prepare for the interview before you start, and so that when such questions as Trevor said, we're giving you this is but a summary of whatever you can expect. But once you get to the once you're preparing for the position, ensure you expose yourself to as many interview questions as possible, so that whatever comes your way, whatever permutation of these questions that might come, that you are capable of covering it adequately. Trevor, just go on.
Okay. Yeah. So thanks for that, Tony. That's quite important, as he's mentioned. And so what we're doing right now, I just actually picked a few examples, like, for example, what I was asked and how I dealt with it and how I answered. And as Tony has mentioned, there's so many resources online where you have, because remember, these are global companies. These are the absolute cream de la cream of corporates that people like in finance want to apply to. And so there is a track record you can see of questions that they tend to ask. And so you can just Google them and prepare for them beforehand. So for example, if they ask, why do you want to work for us? Or if they ask, why should we hire you? So immediately you should think they're asking about what's in it for them. And so, for example, you can say, before applying for a job, I spend time looking into the company to see if I can make a difference to the team, and also if it's somewhere I would like to work long term. Then you mentioned, having researched your organization, I was hugely impressed with the quality products and services you offer, and also your company values. And here you can mention a few of those values and how they tie in with your own personal values as well. And so if I get to work with you, I feel it will be somewhere I can make a big difference, and also somewhere I will be able to learn and grow within this role. And so doing that, it shows that you have knowledge about the company, knowledge about the role, and that you do have a passion and motivation that you want to work for them. And so the other question, this is also a very, very big question. So I'll just take you through and also ask Tony any thoughts that he has on this. So when you're asked, what are your weaknesses? Never, ever, ever pick a strength in disguise, like say, I'm a perfectionist or I'm a workaholic, or don't talk of your own personal trait. So what you do, you pick one past weakness, like I've written, for example, if you had a problem with delegation, and one current weakness that you have that only occur in certain contexts. So it's not something that you're constantly struggling with. So they also shouldn't say that, okay, this is someone who has baggage. You're bringing aboard someone who already has a really persistent and nagging weakness. So just a weakness that appears in certain contexts. Then you show how you took steps to improve, or how you're taking steps to improve on working on that weakness. And so you can build stories around each of them. So I've just come up with an example. So we can say, in situations where I need to share responsibilities, I have tended to want to handle it all to ensure it is successful, and I feel uneasy leaving someone to work on something significant. As a result, I have learned to be cognizant of this fact and no longer mistrust people's work. And so you can give an actual example of how you've worked on your weakness. So you can say, for example, when working as a volunteer at this certain children's home, I ensured that I delegated enough responsibilities to and we were able to help the event at the children's home become a great success, and I definitely learned from that experience. And so you can conclude by saying, I have thus learned to trust others and value the quality of their work just as much as mine. Now, this is just an example, but it's to give you an idea of how you approach this type of question when you're asked, what is your weakness? So yes, you identify one that isn't a personal trait nor a strength in disguise. Then you have to, and I can't stress this enough, you have to show how you've taken steps to work on that weakness and how you've improved on that, working on that weakness. So Tony, do you have anything to add regarding this question?
First of all, I think you've really highlighted the main points as far as this is concerned. First off, you don't highlight a strength in disguise, because it will just come off as pretentious. If you say like Trevor, an example that Trevor gave, if you say like you're a perfectionist, so ensure that whatever weakness you're telling them, is not meant to. Basically, they're not looking for a perfect person. They're not looking for a robot. So you don't have to twist your words to turn a strength maybe into a weakness or any of that sort, because it will come off as pretentious. Believe me, they have had all of those, and I assure you they probably they hire thousands. Just one recruitment takes they thousands of people go through even every year for each recruitment. So they've all the permutations of using your strengths to turning your strengths into weaknesses. They have had all of them, so there's nothing new that you can tell them. So it's better you become you become more ingenuous, you become more genuine. Sorry, you become more genuine and you express yourself. And the best way to do this is through situations, as Trevor said, because if you're asked what your weakness is, you don't just state your weakness and just that's it. Ensure that you prepare in advance, find out situations that are attached to this weakness, and you can give them a whole story and how exactly you're working towards resolving this particular weakness that you have, or how you are checking yourself every time you maybe you fall back into this habit that you're highlighting. Yeah, Trevor.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Yeah, so that's covered. So the last example that we had is, so why do you want this job, or why do you want this role? So earlier we covered something similar to this where they asked, why do you want to work for this company? But if they ask specifically the role, then you can reference the job advert in your answer. So I've just given an example. I want this job for two reasons. First, I read the job advert in detail and I believe the skills and qualities you need are an exact match for my experience. I want to work in a job where I can literally hit the ground running and start making positive differences straight away. The second reason is the stage I am in my life now, close to graduating. I feel like corporate banking is the way for me going forward, and it's a job I want to do in the long term. Therefore, getting an opportunity to be an intern in corporate banking will give me a solid foundation with which to launch my career as a banker. Now, this does two things. This shows that you're well acquainted with the job description or the job advert that they uh, gave out. And it also shows that you're in it for the long haul. Like, you're not just trying out this internship and then moving on to the next, but you're someone that they can invest in because you want to do this long term. And so that definitely raises your appeal and your attractiveness in front of the recruiter, because you want this, this is something that you've mentioned you want to do long term, and it's something that you want to do for like your entire career. So it definitely gives you an edge over someone else who may not answer in this way. Tony, do you have any additions?
I think you've covered it quite well. But as far as why you want the position, first of all, it's the main thing you're trying to do is express your passion for the position. So I was told this a couple weeks back. I don't remember who exactly told me this, but always when you're tackling this particular question, you always want to think of it in terms of, you see the person who's interviewing you. They've probably been in the same role for a while, so just think of them, that person who stuck in the same path for that long, and how exactly they will describe um, wanting that position. In your basically discount who they are now, maybe that executive, think of them as an intern and how they'll think about it and how they'd describe their passion going into the position. Because you might, as Trevor said, they want someone who is invested for the long haul. Even if you're not that person, always think from the perspective of that person who's in it for the long haul. Because once again, it's a business at the end of the day. They when they onboard you for maybe for the summer internship, they're teaching you their skills, they're passing on to you, and uh, they want that they want a person who they can be assured of the existence within the company and their continuous provision of value to the company. So when you're thinking of the position, when you're expressing why you want a position, always ensure you express it from a position of someone who's in it for the long haul, and that's very, very essential in covering this question. Trevor. Trevor. I don't know if he's still on.
Oh, sorry, I was speaking while still muted. So I was saying, thank you, Tony. that was quite concise and you were able to cover it quite well. And as you also mentioned, these are just a few examples. There are so many online. Like we mentioned, there are multitudes of people who apply to these roles. And so in preparation for them, of course, they want to know which sort of questions can be asked. And so you have an entire list of questions you can find on.
So the floor is open. I do not happen to Trevor's audio because I personally can't hear him from my end. But at this juncture, we have finished what exactly we wanted to present to you. And I'm sure if you've sat through the whole presentation, you might have a few questions that you have in mind that you would like answered. Um, Trevor and I have applied for several of these positions, so we're in a position to, if not answer you directly, we're in a position to guide you in the right direction as far as this is concerned. So if you have any question, you can just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
Hello. Thank you everybody for making it. For I, it's not a question, but rather a praise to the team for organizing this session. I'd like to say thank you very much for making this possible. And I would like to encourage us to take up this initiative. For myself, I have never been employed before. I have never applied for a job at all, but through this, maybe I might consider taking up one of the positions. And I would like to also encourage us to keep on participating in such programs that the club organizes. And this will help each one of us in succeeding in different fields. And as you know, with some of these banks, they tend to be very diverse when it comes to their personnel. So whatever skills you have always ends up being relevant at some point in time. And thank you very much once again. For I need to log out because I'm required to be out in the next few minutes. So Antony, thank you. Trevor, thank you. And all those who are in attendance, thank you very much. And that's it on my end.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Titus. If there are no questions at the moment, but perhaps you do have questions or you might have questions later on, please feel free to either post it in the chat or just come straight to Tony and I, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. And actually, that's actually a good segue to me reminding everyone that the position, or it's rather the event that I had sent to the group, the Bank of America recruitment event, will be happening at 2 p.m. It's on invite basis, so if you hadn't applied, then by now it's too late. But you can still apply directly for the position because I checked and all the positions are now open. So the point of this event that's at 2 is to just show you the different roles that are open and see which one fits you, which one is more your skill, if you're into investment banking, if you're into corporate banking, wholesale credit, if you're into operations, tech. So you just find which one suits you best, and they'll give you more information so you'll be able to make an informed decision regarding the application. So for those who are successful in applying, I had a few who reached out to me. All the best. And for the rest of everyone here, I would ask you to kindly apply, take the opportunity. As Titus mentioned, these banks are diversifying, and that's how we now have Africa programs. Before, they never used to recruit from Africa, but now as diversity is increasing, they're including more and more diverse African recruitment initiatives. So just try your luck. I applied to 3 before successfully passing through 1. So just try as many as you can. Goldman, CITI, BOA, JP Morgan, just try, and it's a game of numbers. So eventually you will be able to succeed in one. So I'd also like to thank Tony for being an incredible partner with this. And in case he has any closing remarks, I'll just leave him to close us off.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah, sure thing.
My name is Ian. I was asking, are there any academic questions that they usually ask? For example, if you're applying for a position in risk management department, are there any academic questions that you should know or something?
No. So I can give you an experience. So they ask situational questions because remember, this is an entry-level position. You're an intern, so they expect you not to know anything regarding the role that you're applying to. Of course, you do have to have a little bit of some prior knowledge, like you've studied finance, but they won't ask an actual specific risk management question, like what was the risk framework for this particular bank with this particular year or something, but they will ask you a situation. So for example, they'll give you a case study, like I was given a case study. So they'll ask, what risks can you identify within the case study, right? So just an example, they say you have a house and you have a child in the house and you have the gas on. So is there any risk with that? You get what I'm saying? Like they just give you a situation and try to see whether you can identify any risk that may come out of that situation. So they want to see your mindset and if you'll be a good fit, but not any particular academic question. No. Tony, anything to add?
I think you've covered everything.
I have this question.
Oh, go ahead. Whoever's asking, go ahead.
Okay, so I was asking, Trevor said that you didn't necessarily have to have some academic background for the position you're in. Will you say it will be a good risk management action to like have more than one position, or like will that lead to disqualification?
Oh, you can definitely apply. I'm not sure if it was the same with CITI, but I applied to BOA, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs, and in each of them, you are free to apply to more than one position. So you can apply to corporate banking, you can apply to tech, you can apply to HR, you can just try as much as you just throw your eggs, spread your seed, as it were, to try and see. But I would definitely advise you just pick the ones you actually have a major interest in. Don't just try for the sake of trying, but go for one that you genuinely have an interest and a passion for, because it shows. When you're passionate about something, you'll put the effort, you'll put the work, you'll grind. And so that grind is what will help you to proceed through the stages. But if you're applying just for the sake of applying, then at some point your quality of work will start to go down. The effort that you put in to apply won't be the same. So yes, you're free to apply, you won't get disqualified, but just try to aim for the ones that you're genuinely interested in.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? Okay, I think there are none. So thank you for making time to attend this. If you joined the session, maybe after it started, we'll post the video on our YouTube channel. We'll share the link in the club WhatsApp group once you've put it up sometime tomorrow, I believe. So even if you missed part of the session, it's okay. You can be able to access the recording at your own time. And as Trevor had said, if you have any questions, you can forward them to either of us. We're in the Smart Investor Club group, or you can just DM us directly. Other than that, thank you for making time for the session. I hope you've learned a thing or two, especially now going into recruitment season as most of these banks take on 2022 summer interns and analysts and all that. And Trevor and I will also be sharing the links in the group if you come across any additional ones. So apart from that, have a great day. I hope you learned a thing or two. Thank you.